You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
JT Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Thor,
Corey Dr. O,
Brandon Sanders,
Robin Mom,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Sherwin Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is...
Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm super excited to have Robyn Lucas on the show with me. She has an amazing new book. It's called Paper Doll Lina, and this is a debut novel, and what an amazing novel to debut with. I love it. I know you're going to love it as well. Welcome to the show, Robyn.
Thank you for having me, Hank.
I'm excited to have you. Robyn, we begin each show with the same question, and that question is, what is your first memory of wanting to be a writer or storyteller?
Oh, I know exactly the answer to this. I was in middle school. I think it was it was fifth grade. And we had a writing assignment, and I was so into sci-fi back then because, there was a Total Recall and Blade Runner and all these, sci-fi movies that I grew up on, Star Wars, Star Trek, that sort of thing. And I wrote this epic story and it was sci-fi. I had cuts in it and like cut scenes to this and cut scenes to this year, cut scenes to this year.
I love it.
I will never forget. I got like a B on it and I was crushed. And I asked my teacher, I said, what is wrong with this story? This is epic. This is going to be something someday. And she said, there was no continuity. I couldn't understand how you were going from one timeline to the next. And I'm like, it's sci-fi. People do that in sci-fi.
Have you never watched a movie, woman?
I know. And I was just crushed. I was absolutely crushed. But I didn't stop writing, thankfully.
That is amazing. So did you said you never stopped writing? Did that encourage you that, even though it wasn't, the ultimate thing, that would find publication and all that, did it give you the confidence that you could go from point A to point Z in a story and tell an entire story?
No, it didn't give me any more confidence. I definitely did not stop though. But yeah, it didn't give me more confidence. Actually, it kind of, to have a teacher at that age tell you, I just didn't get it. I don't think that's really a good story. I mean, that crushes a kid, and it crushed me for a little while, but I'm stubborn. I couldn't stop. I just didn't share the stories then. I did exactly what they wanted me to do in school. I did the narratives that they asked of me. And I just sort of played it safe until, a few years ago.
Well, Robyn, a lot of authors that I talk to have this early desire to tell stories and to be writers. And then, along that path somewhere, life gets in the way and you start having to pay bills and, maybe raise a family and all of that stuff. But writing has a way of coming back around and coming back into your life. And what was that moment for you where writing came back around and you knew, okay, this is something that I'm going to take seriously, and maybe the first thing I write's not going to be it, but I'm going to be pursuing that now?
Wow. I believe it was 2009. I had just closed my business. I had a product that I brought to market. I had an amazing licensing deal. It was during the hype of like the whole mommy millionaire phase where, moms were inventing these great products and they were, going on the as seen on TV type thing.
Sure. And
I ended up getting knocked off within about 4 months after my licensing deal, and it crushed me. It ended up taking off, and I had to close my business because of that. It was a product that was like unpatentable because it was a sewn product. But unfortunately, it crushed me, and I reverted into reading. And a lot of things were going on in my life personally as well that I didn't realize, was a negative environment. so to say. But I ended up just reverting inward. I read a lot. I dove right into books. It was during Twilight, so do not judge me. I inhaled all of the
No
Twilight
judgment.
books. We did the whole midnight movie with my daughter and with all my girlfriends and everything. We were either Team Edward or Team Jacob.
Love
And
it.
I took that as, hey, you know what? This chick, she had a dream. She wrote a book. I could do that too. I've always wanted to write. I think everyone probably had that idea back then.
Sure.
So I just started writing. I just picked up some stories that I'd always kind of jotted down, and I actually typed them up in my laptop. And sooner or later, I just ended up writing. I was writing every week. I can't say I was writing daily, but I was writing weekly, and I ended up getting up with a few different groups. I think Nathan Bransford at the time had a
I
forum.
remember him. Yeah.
He's a treasured person in my life. He's wonderful. But I just poured myself into his forums. I was like, you know what? I can do this. I'm going to be published one day. And I participated in everything. I joined a few groups. And hot air rises, right? It just brings everything up to the top. And I got in with some really, really great women who we were all writing for the same cause, writing for publication. And one by one, each person started to get published, and we were like, holy crap, this can actually happen. What? This is real. It takes that non-tangible aspect of publication into something tangible, like, oh wow, this is a girl that I knew. She had an idea. I saw her write it. I baited her book. I critiqued it. And holy cow, she has an agent. Holy cow, she sold a book. She sold 3 books. I know the story. I can do it too. It actually makes it something that you can do.
Right.
So that actually happened. Quite a few of my girlfriends ended up selling books left and right. And that just encouraged me. That just really encouraged me. So I guess that's how I started, writing again in my adult life. But life does have a way of finding
Absolutely.
ways to detour you. Yeah.
You made the distinction that you were writing for publication then. What was
Yes.
that um was there like a defining moment for you where you were like, okay, I'm taking my hobby now and I'm taking this seriously. I'm pursuing publication. Because a lot of people will work on a story and it's just their personal passion and they're just just kind of loving the process, and then publication is a thought that comes later, when there's a fully formed thing, and then they're like, well, what do I do with it now? What for you, what was that distinction? I'm writing for publication. What did that mean to you?
I've always wanted to share my stories. This was before ebooks and all that, where you can just self-publish.
Sure.
It was 2009, 2010. I've always wanted to hold my words in my hand. And it's different from writing and printing it off at Kinko's back then. I'm telling my
Yeah.
age right now. But it's totally different, and honestly, as a stay-at-home mom, I was technically a stay-at-home mom at the time. I needed the validation because I was also in an abusive marriage, and I felt that if I brought, this wonderful thing to my ex-husband, husband at the time, that it would turn my situation around. It would make me relevant in the marriage. That of course did not happen. Abuse escalates. That's just what abuse does, right? And that's exactly what happened. So fortunately, I was able to finish my stories. I ended up landing an agent for YA. I think it was finally in 2015 or 2016 or something like that. But my book never got picked up. We went to acquisitions, and there was a big shift in the market, and it ultimately did not get purchased.
So, writers are an interesting bunch because you spend months and months, sometimes years, working on a project, and it ultimately doesn't get published. It doesn't get picked up, and instead of just saying, well, that was a a great thing to try. And, and I'm sure there are lots of people that, give up after not reaching publication. But there's something about writers that just say, okay, well, I'll just make up another thing completely, out of the ether and try that. What was it that kept you motivated and kept you pushing forward even when that book didn't get picked up?
Naivete.
That is a valid answer.
I don't think that I actually knew how to give up. In all honesty, it was just, forge ahead. I mean, yeah, it blew the wind out of my sails. It knocked me down, but it didn't knock me out, so to say. I needed that thing to pursue. I needed that end goal, because of my situation. I felt like I really needed that. And I wasn't going to quit. I mean, I did pause for a few months, but the stories were always there. The stories were always coming, and I always had to, purge them out at least weekly, get them out of my system. So yeah, I mean, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
Authors, I have a fantastic new service to tell you about. It's called PubSite. PubSite is a service to help you build your very own website, your home on the web, where you can promote your work and give your fans a place to connect with you. PubSite is a website platform that allows every author, regardless of budget, to have a great-looking professional website. Developed by the book marketing professionals at FSB Associates, PubSite is the new, easy-to-use DIY website builder developed specifically for books and authors. Whether you're an author of one book or 20, or a small publisher, PubSite allows you to build, design, and most importantly, update your website pain-free. No need to be dependent on a designer or webmaster to make a small but costly change to your website. Save the money and do it yourself. PubSite is the best platform for authors because it's a book-centric platform. PubSite was built just for authors and small publishers. Every design, feature, and layout is book-centric. They have customized designs for you to use. It's easy to build. No coding or HTML is necessary to create a stunning, professional-looking website with all the features you want. Get a custom domain name, yourname.com. It's simple to update. You can add all of your books, add a blog and a book tour, sell from any retailer, manage your email list and social media, and even do e-commerce. Build your website with a 14-day free trial, then pay just $19.99 per month, which includes hosting. And we offer packages starting at $499 to set up the website for you. Pub-site.com, the place to help authors find their home on the web. Looking for a tool to help you visualize your story before the drafting begins? Plotpins is cloud-based and optimized for any device. There's nothing to download. From the new writer who isn't sure how to tell their story to the veteran who can increase their productivity dramatically, we've had experienced writers lay out a detailed structure for several novels in a series in a matter of a few days. The app takes you through 4 steps of the process: the concept or log line. Make sure you have a solid concept that you can keep coming back to throughout the process. The outline, 12 beats and 3 acts, each has a description of what should be happening with examples. The board, 40 cards. We take the 12 beats and add sub-beats to those, breaking it down even further and being very specific about what should go into each. These also have examples and descriptions. Right. We take those 40 cards and turn them into a to-do list. For a 50,000-word book, it's about 2 cards per chapter roughly. We have a beautiful editor built into the app. You can export your manuscript to a PDF anytime with the click of a button. Let Plotpins help you visualize your writing project. Use code HANK10 to get 10% off Plotpins. Plotpins.com. So when did Paper Doll Lina come to you? Was this the next thing you wrote? Was it, on down the line? Where did Lina come from?
Oh boy. Well, my YA did not sell, and I was working on another YA and I had revisions to do. And at the time, like I mentioned a little earlier, I was in an abusive marriage, and my ex-husband would not allow me to finish the revisions. And because of that, and because of a few other factors, my agent ended up severing our relationship. So I was unagented. I was kind of in the pits of depression, dealing with some depression. And Charlottesville happened in 2017. I think it was September 2017 or August 2017. And I just really took it hard. Like, I could not even process the fact that there were such horrible people, states away. I mean, it just watching the news just really made it difficult for me to process. And I kind of reverted into myself again. And I took out my laptop and I just started pounding away. I knew that there was a woman and she had a story to tell. Somehow or another, it involved kids. Somehow or another, it involved meeting a celebrity. Little by little, as I wrote the book, I slowly started piecing together some items in my life that were not normal. And there was kind of a parallel, to what I was writing and to what I was going through, in reality. And I ended up purging the book. Like, I wrote the book in about 9 weeks. And then I just sat on it for a little while and I chewed on it and I was like, there's something here, and I had some beta readers and they were like, Robyn, this is something, but is there something more, or is there something more that you're trying to say? And it took me a little while to process that. And it wasn't until the wonderful, actually 2 days before my birthday in 2018, I ended up having to take out a protective order against my ex-husband and my husband at the time. And that was really difficult. But, I brushed off my story, I revised it, and I sent it to an agent who had expressed interest in my writing previously. And she read it and she was like, wow, this is what I've been waiting for. And
Wow.
she signed me by November, actually, which was really cool.
That's fantastic. Before that experience that kind of prodded Paper Doll Lina to come out, you were writing YA.
Yes.
Was this a conscious shift in your writing when you started writing Lena? Oh, or was this just the natural setting, genre, however you want to differentiate between YA and adult or whatever? Did those thoughts even come into your mind? That this book is going to be different from what I've been writing in the past.
Actually, yeah. I always said I wrote YA because I did not feel comfortable writing adult books. I didn't think that I was, smart enough, quote unquote. Because I had a lot of things going on, a lot of environmental
Huh.
things going on. And not that you have to be unwise or less intelligent to write YA. I just thought that I had more of a teenage voice in my writing. And writing women's fiction just really it amazed me. Like, I was able to really have my voice, not necessarily the voice of a teenage character or a teenager that I was thinking about. I was able to put my voice in there, and every single book that I write now, there's my voice, as a woman who's experienced life, as a woman who's experienced certain situations. And I just think it just makes my writing richer.
I've as someone who has raised teenagers, and when you spend a lot of your time with teenagers,
Hmm.
and you're watching movies with them, and you're talking about books and just talking
Oh
about
yeah.
life, um, a lot of that seeps in, and that just
Hmm.
seems like, well, this is going to be the natural thing that I would write, and sometimes you have to push yourself to get out of what would feel comfortable to get to what feels true.
And you're absolutely right, because there was a lot of that going on. I have two teenagers. I have a 19-year-old now who's in her who's at college, and I have a 16-year-old son who is a junior this year.
Oh, you were in the thick of it when
Oh,
writing this
I love
book.
it. I love this. Oh my gosh, they are so much fun. But when I was writing YA, honestly, I was writing books for them, books that they could read. Because this was before the whole, we need diverse books type thing, right? This was before
Sure.
Angie Thomas and before Kimberly Jones and before Nick Stone. So I was writing books, about Black girls who are going to be spies, because that's what I thought would be, my kids could read, of saving the world. And that was fun. I probably will go back to YA because I have a few, plot bunnies that I'd love to play around with. But if I do, my daughter will most likely co-write it with me. Just because she loves writing herself and she's a brilliant writer. But no, I mean, I do think that it was kind of just a natural phase in my life to pick up women's fiction and just to tell the story that I needed to tell in my heart.
So tell me about Lena. When you started thinking about this story idea, did she come to you fully formed? I know you said that you had a couple of ideas that started coalescing into this, but tell me specifically about the character of Lena. How did she come to you?
She came to me in a dream. At the time, 2017, my kids were working on an app. It's a mental health app. To date, I think they have like 140,000 users. And they launched in 2018 and it ended up kind of going viral, which is great. But my kids were working on an app back then. And I had the strangest dream one night. I dreamt, about a woman in a green room watching her kids on TV. And a celebrity just sort of walks in. And I was like, oh, I honestly thought it was going to be like a romance, right? Just straight romance. But as I was writing her story, it just sort of happened organically. And I hate it when people say, oh, the character spoke to me, or, oh, yeah, it just happened. But I can honestly say this character just sort of happened organically because of what was going on in my actual life. I think of it kind of like a Horcrux, right? It's like a little piece of me that I was pulling from, and I didn't realize it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. The paper doll is a fantastic metaphor for what you're doing in this book, and when did that come to you? This idea of Lena kind of considering herself a paper doll, and what did that mean?
Oh boy, paper is one-dimensional, right? You can draw a stick figure on it, and that stick figure is just on that one plane. And that's kind of how she felt, because when you're being gaslit, when you're being coercively controlled, when your life is not your own, you ultimately feel one-dimensional. You don't have your own thoughts. You don't have your own goals. You don't have your own ideas. You don't have your own wherewithal. So I thought about a paper doll, and I was like, yeah, I mean, she's not a Barbie doll. She's a paper doll. She's beautiful, and she's just paper, because paper can get crumbled, paper can get torn, paper can get shredded. Yeah, I think that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah. Lena, from what I've gathered from talking to you, Lena and you share some life experiences, some things that have happened. How did when you're writing this? I'm assuming there was a bit of catharsis that starts happening when writing a different character who might have experienced some of the things that you've experienced. But how does Lena differ from at what point in the writing did Lena become her own character, and and she's going through her own experiences that may or may not mirror some of your experiences. Like when did Lena become a full character of her own?
Oh, wow. Um, I think she just became a full character by as I was revising it. I, because I vomited it out, right? I word vomited for 9 weeks.
Sure.
It was a long therapy session, right? But afterwards, when I started pulling it out little by little, I realized, oh, okay, this is someone different. This is not my story.
Sure.
This is her story. I need to give her the page and let her tell her story. And little by little, I noticed Lena was doing things. I was writing. I'm not saying that she's like, her own person. But she was finding her voice a lot earlier. She was realizing who she was a lot earlier. And as I wrote, her finding her voice, I, little by little found mine. So it kind of became that sort of relationship. But yeah, definitely during revisions, when you're drafting, it's a skeleton. So when you start revising, you're adding the bones and the marrow and the muscles and life, and you're giving it life, and that's sort of what happened when I was creating Lena, in the revision type cycle.
You posted a video on Instagram a few months ago, and it was you opening the box of your author copies of the book. And y- I started crying with you, watching this video. There's just something magical about you reaching in, pulling out this book that had been so much a part of your life, and just the emotion just took you over. What was that moment like when you opened that and held that copy in your hand?
Oh boy, we were in a private room in Panera. No, at Atlanta Bread Company of all places. And I had just a few of my close friends and my kids. Because some of my friends would like watch my kids when I was like, I need to revise, I need to work on this. They would pick them up from school and that sort of thing. So I was like, hey guys, I'll bring some champagne and we can just hang out. I did not expect to have the reaction that I had. I just wanted it videotaped kind of for posterity, like, hey, mom is opening her first book box. When I opened that box and I saw the covers and I felt it and I saw my name, 42 years of wanting just sort of came through. It was just like taking a breath for the first time after you've wanted to breathe for so long. And I'm choking up right now. And I felt like in that moment, the little girl in me, that fifth grader who was crushed, that fifth grader finally got an acknowledgement. That fifth grader is proud of the 42-year-old woman, like
Absolutely.
we did it in sort of a sense.
So now that the book is finished and it's out, there's obviously probably a feeling of validation that this journey has produced the fruit that you hoped that it would. Are you now thinking about where do I go from here? What do I follow this story up with? And is it ever a feeling of this story was so personal and I felt so connected to it? How do you produce that again?
Wow, I have not had that idea. No, when we sold the book, we sold two of them. It was book one and book two. And book two is actually going to be Nancy's story. Nancy is Lena's best friend. So we're going to dive into her life.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, I love Nancy. She is so much fun to write. She is definitely not me. None of my personality, because she's brash and she is outspoken. But the name of her book is going to be Porcelain Doll Nancy, because on the outside, she's just this hardcore, gorgeous, hard shell of a person. And on the inside, she's kind of empty. She's had some things in her life that has caused her to be really hard on the outside. So I'm really having fun actually writing book 2 right now. It is due September 6th to my editor, so I'm kind of in crazy writer mode. Oh boy, and I have a book coming out next week, so yay, team no sleep.
Oh
But
yeah.
I was reminded. I was kind of having a panic attack, and I was freaking out a little bit, and my boyfriend actually said, "Hey, take a deep breath, because this is where you've always wanted to be."
Right.
And that just rang so true with me. I'm like, wow, you're right. I've always wanted to be freaking out about a book coming out. I've always wanted to be on deadline. I'm finally having those experiences. I'm just going to sit in it. I'm just going to go with it and just enjoy the feeling, and
Enjoy every part of the process.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That first book, like you said, you word vomited out in like 9 weeks. Um, has this process been different?
Oh boy. If I'm going to be honest, I was supposed to start writing this book in April. According to my calendar, I made a calendar because I was finishing up like all the copy edits and all the 25,000 read-throughs that I had to do with book 1. So April, I set aside to start this book. I ended up losing my sister in April.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That just really, it was like a gut punch, because she was younger, much younger. And that really, it hit me in a way that I was not expecting. And I did not open my laptop until July. So I am purging this book from my system right now. I'm like writing like crazy. So yeah, it's going to be another quick draft, and I'm going to have to send my editor some wine and probably some roses or something as an apology for what she's about to get.
Chocolate. Don't forget chocolate.
First, yeah, some definite chocolate. Maybe some treats for her dog,
There you go. There you go.
It's going to be a clean first draft, but it is going to be a first draft. But, I shine in revisions. I know there's some authors who are like, I hate revisions. I'm like, give me all the edits, please, and let me do it by what I do best. I would rather revise and edit than purge, than like free write. I'm not, I don't know. I think it's just a mental thing when it comes to writing, but I love editing.
I love it. I love it. Paper Doll Lina, when you're hearing this... Excuse me, I'll edit that. Paper Doll Lina, when you're hearing this, is available everywhere. Today, you can go grab it in paperback or in Kindle edition if you'd rather read on your Kindle, or audiobook. It's available everywhere that you buy books. We're going to put links to it in the show notes. Also, go support your local bookstore. If your bookstore's open, go buy it there. Robyn, if people are just discovering you and want to dig into all the great stuff you do, where can they find you online?
Sure. You can find me at robynlucas.com. Robyn with a Y, ROBYN, Lucas, LUCAS.com. And I tend to put recipes up and different blog posts and all my socials.
Excellent. We'll put links to all those in the show notes as well. Robyn, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Thank you much, Hank. Thank you much. I'm sorry. Doing 4 things at one time. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time, and I appreciate you having me on.
Wargate Books presents Hit and Fade, Forgotten Ruin, Book 2, by Jason Anspach and Nick Cole. Narrated for you by Christopher Ryan Grant. Chapter 1. The army of the dead walked straight into our ambush east of Fortress Hawthorne. That's what the FOB is called now, Fortress Hawthorne. Despite it being officially known as Forward Operating Base Hawthorne, as was originally intended when the 50 detachments of various special operations groups came forward through time from Area 51. A one-way mission to save Western civilization from a rampaging nanoplague destroying the very fabric of said civilization. Apparently, we overshot the temporal insertion point and stuck the landing. Sorta. About 10,000 years too late. Said civilization is now basically something straight out of Tolkien or Dungeons and Dragons, which we've all now gotten a lot more familiar with thanks to our resident expert and fledgling hedge wizard, the infamous PFC Kennedy. But the Rangers just call it the fob. The first of our explosives to ruin the leading elements of the army of the dead advancing on us, Claymore Mines, the recaptured forge back at Hawthorne, had cranked out in the weeks after we'd retaken it from King Triton, were fired by Ranger Sergeant Kang down there with the Scouts and Captain Knifehand's assaulters. It was close to midnight when the front rank of bony warriors, carrying rotting shields and spears, eyes glowing malevolently in the deep night mist, advanced into our ambush, only to get ruined by the daisy-chained claymores' sudden eruption. Above us, a cloud-shrouded moon cast a wan yellow light over the battlefield. The night was hot, and spring was coming on full now. The pilots who'd gotten us here in the grounded C-17 back at Ranger Alamo, using their meteorology skills, had guessed it was going to be a long, hot summer ahead of us, and an early one at that. But there was a cold shiver in the dark on your exposed skin that you couldn't quite explain when you saw the dead advancing rank after rank. The bone warriors, carrying spear and shield, other darker creatures barely seen. The lower areas of the earth were graveyard cool and misty, so maybe that was it. Still, the brutal, unrelenting cold of our almost last stand back at Ranger Alamo was gone now. But not the horrors. There wasn't a night that some ranger didn't wake up out of a tormented sleep, breathing heavy, sidearms scanning the dark and looking for orcs and ogres to ventilate. I was sweating in the hour leading up to the attack, despite the night and the mist. Kurtz had us humping hard to get the 240 and all its ammo up to the top of a small hill that overlooked the area where we'd channel the advancing echelons of the Army of the Dead into further fun and games the Rangers had planned at a bend in a riverbed. If the approaching Army of the Dead continued on their current course track, they'd enter it for a brief period. It was decided by the captain we'd kill them there. And I was sweating. Not because of fear. No, not at all. "Firing," whispered Sergeant Kang over the comm as he detonated the mines. And 8 daisy-chained claymores spat thousands of steel balls all across the front line of what even I was still finding it hard to believe I was seeing through my night vision device. Skeletons. Warrior skeletons. Ancient warriors like something out of the Bronze or Iron Ages. Worked breastplates of molded plate or rotting scales. Green and tarnished, stamped with the markings of fabled armies fallen in battles long, long ago. Leather cuirasses on some, rotting boots, helms with broken horns, missing teeth, tattered leather kilts, beads and charms dangling from bone wrists, enigmatic holy signs and primal torques black with grave dirt, or from a funeral pyre long ago on some forgotten battlefield far from here, draped about the spine where the throat should be, where it rises to connect to a bone-white skull that seems filled with malevolent purpose and diabolical intelligence, malignantly so. Walking skeletons like something out of a Ray Harryhausen clay model Sinbad epic from the 1960s. Above, the sliver of moon gave enough light to strengthen our NVGs, making the night vision devices perform exceptionally well as we sprang our trap and watched the advancing elements get rocked by our initial high-explosive opening bid in the game we were about to play. The air was still and hot in the moments before the fight began as we lay there in the tall, sharp grass, waiting for it all to go down. I was thinking a hot cup of coffee would be nice about now. Except my canteen only had cold coffee I'd brewed during the long, silent, and windy afternoon of preparation. Still, I was happy knowing I had some, rather than none.
Authors, if you're looking for a partner to help ensure that your book is the best it can possibly be, look no further than Pico's House. Crystal and her staff make a conscious effort to be critical yet courteous. They also strive to make the business side of things run smoothly so that you can rest easy knowing that your manuscript is in capable hands. Whether you need beta reading, developmental editing, a manuscript critique, line editing, copy editing, or proofreading, Pico's House is the one-stop shop for you. Check them out today at picoshouse.com to get started.